Okay, now we're going to add an interior wall to our shed. So I'm going to go to Wall, and on my drop down here for all my walls, we've started on a generic 8-inch wall, but I'm going to go to an interior wall, and I'm going to just choose a interior wall that is 4 7/8 inch partition. And I'm going to make it so that this is 4 feet away from the top wall here. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm at 4 feet. You can see my little pink X is right where I'm going. I'm going right in the middle of the wall here, so I'm going to click, and I'm going to bring this out to 7.5 feet, 7 feet 6 inches, and I'm going to come down and lock onto this other wall. And I'm going to hit escape and escape to get out of this. Now, when I clicked on this, I actually made it 7 feet 5 inches because of the last second my mouse kind of swayed. So I'm going to just change this so that it's 6 instead of 5. And so now I've got my interior room. And I'm going to add a door to this room as well. So I'm going to go up to my door. And I've got my single panel 3 here. I'm going to do the same kind of door. This time I'm going to have it swing into the room, into this little room here. And you always want to make sure that you don't put your door right up against the wall. See how the door is right up against the wall? You need to have a little bit of clearance there, always. And I'd recommend about 2.5 feet from the middle of the door to the edge, so that you have a little bit of clearance. So about 2.5 feet is a good rule of thumb. I'm going to click, and at the last second again I changed it to 2 feet 7 inches. So I'm going to cancel this, click on my door, hit escape until you get back to the mouse. I'm going to click on the door and change this back to 6. Enter. And you can always change the door the way that it is after you've laid it down. You can just throw a door down and then change all the dimensions of it, and that's fine. So now we have our exterior door, our interior door. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of furniture to here. And so this time I'm going to load component, and I'm going to go over and load family, and I'm going to go to furniture. And again, if you can't see the pictures, go up here to views and choose thumbnails. And I'm going to choose a bench locker room, just a standard bench that we can sit down inside our shed with. So I'm going to load that. And you can see that I have my bench. And if you click here, you'll notice that there's different sizes of the bench. So if you want a really large bench, you could make it 60 inches long. And so now we have a longer bench. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that up against the corner here. And I'm going to put one down in this corner too, just so that we have some place to sit down. Okay, hit escape, escape, back to my mouse. And I'm going to add some shelves as well. So I go to component, load family, go into the furniture. And in here we should have some shelves as well. And look, we got shelving right there. So I'll open up shelves. Now shelves is selected. If I come in here and look at shelving, there's different sizes. I'm going to put in a larger shelf. So this kind of shelf right here. I'm going to put a long shelf right here. And I'm going to put another shelf. And I want it against this wall right here. But right now it's horizontally facing. And I want it to be the other way around. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it on the outside of my shed here. And I'm going to hit escape, escape. And now I'll click the shelves, select them. And if you look up here under your Modify Furniture tab, there's a Rotate tool. So I'm going to click that. And whenever you're going to rotate, if you rotate, say, 90 degrees, and I'm going to move this over just a little bit so you can see. If you rotate this 90 degrees, you want to make sure that you're snapped on to either 90 or 180 or 0 degrees, however you want to think of it. So I want to rotate this around this way. So I'm going to start out down here and click. And then I'm going to move my mouse, and I'm going to make sure that I don't come in here because otherwise you might snap onto something inside your room. So I'm just going to come out here in the white zone and see right here my degrees. I'm at 24 degrees, now I'm at 40 degrees. You want to spin this at 90 degrees, so it's at 90 now. Click. And now my shelf is rotated. And so now I can just move it into position. Now my shelving is too big. This is too long. So I'm going to change this to the smaller shelf. And I'm going to put a shelf right there against the wall. And I'm going to go ahead and put another shelf. So I'm going to go to Home, Component, Shelving's already loaded, but I'm going to choose the different kind of shelf, the smaller one, like that. I'm going to put a shelf against this wall. Escape, escape. And then lastly, I'll put Component, Load Family, go to my furniture one more time, and I'm going to grab the table, rectangular table. There's my rectangular table. It's 72 by 30 inches, but I'm going to make it a little smaller, 60 by 48, and see how that looks. See, that's still a little too large, so I'm just going to make it the smallest that it can possibly be, 36 by 36, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to put that right here in my room so that I now have a little table, and I have a bench that can sit next to the table. Cancel that, escape, escape until you get back to your mouse. Okay, so now we've furnished our shed. Now let's go ahead and add some windows as well. So I'm going to grab my window, and right now I'm fixed. It's a one panel window, so again I'm going to load family for a different kind of window. And I'm going to go down to my Windows folder. And I've got all these windows that I can, choose from. And I'm going to choose a slider with trim. I'm going to place a window here. And here. And one in my room. Right there. Hit escape, escape. Now, right now, my windows are being covered by the shelving units in both of these places. And so I'm going to have to move some of my furniture around, which is no problem. I'm going to make this shelving go against this wall instead. So I'm going to pull this shelf out here. I'm going to rotate it all the way around so that it's facing the right way. I'm going to pull that and put it right there. And it is overhanging a little bit, which isn't great, but that's okay. We now have visibility out of our window. And I'm going to take this shelf right here and move it out. And I usually like to move stuff outside, so that way I'm not going to grab anything that I don't want to. And I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees this way. I'm going to pull it in and put it against this wall instead. And that way I'm going to have my window free. So now my windows are in the right place. And I'm going to make them pretty uniform. So I'm going to make my window here 4 feet away. And I'm going to make my window here 4 feet away as well. And here I'm going to make it 4 feet away as well. So that we have a little uniformity here. Okay, I'm going to alter the walls. We're going to make them a different kind of material. But before we do this, we want to make sure that none of the furniture is like inside the wall. Right now my furniture is kind of inside the wall, so I'm going to click all of my furniture. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move it away from all the walls so that it's got some space. So now my furniture, maybe it's too far away now. Move it back a little bit. Yeah, make sure that there's a little gap between all of your furniture and the walls. So I'm just going to select it and arrow it away a little bit so that there's some space between it and the wall. Okay, so now we have all of our furniture moved away from the wall slightly. And to do this changing of the walls, I'm just going to go to my 3D view really quick. And notice that my walls here are a little too tall. So I'm going to click this wall right here. And right now, I can't change the unconnected height. It's grayed out. And this happens sometimes. And so instead you can change the top offset. Right now it looks like it's probably about 2 feet higher than it's supposed to be if I look at it from the front. So my top offset, if I were to top offset it, say to 2 feet, it's going to make it go 2 feet higher. So instead I'm going to make it go -2. So put -2 for my top offset. And I'm going to look at it from the home view. And if you look at it, it's actually right where it's supposed to be now. So that's good. Now I'm going to click my other wall here. And I'm going to make this one -2 as well. So now all of my walls are in the right place. And I'm going to look inside my room here and see I've got all my furniture in there and it looks pretty nice. My shelving unit is going a little bit further than it should. I mean, it's overhanging on this wall a little bit. And so, based on a design standpoint, you really wouldn't want that. And so I'm actually going to click this wall right here and I'm going to bring this out a little bit. So instead of 7 feet 6 inches, I'm just going to go 8 feet. So that there's not so much of an overhang. As a matter of fact, now that we put our furniture in, we can see that there's some problem. And this can happen. When the door opens, it's going to swing open and you're going to go right into this table here. And so where we've placed the furniture is not necessarily the best locations. And so I'm going to move this table over a little bit and I'm going to move this locker room bench and I'm actually going to change it to a smaller bench. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to pull it over here so that it's kind of in this corner here. Nudge it with my mouse. And I'm going to move the table down to this area. So now we've got a nice flow. You can come into the room, you can go past the table, and you can go into this other room. So now the flow of the room is a lot better. You can come down here and get some supplies, come here and sit down, come over here and sit down, and you've got your table. In fact, I'm going to nudge the table just a little bit more further over so that you have room to sit in front of the table. Okay, so this is good. Alright, so now let's change our walls. So I'm going to click on my wall here, and I'm going to go for this wall and go to Edit Type. Right now it's in the System Family Basic Wall, and it's type generic 8 inches. Whenever you change any of your walls or your floor or your roof or anything that you're going to change the basic structure, you always want to duplicate it. And the reason is because we're going to actually edit what it's made out of down here, but we always want to duplicate it. Otherwise, if we don't duplicate it and we go and edit here and save the changes, we're actually going to save what generic wall is now instead of having generic wall stay the same. And so I'm going to hit duplicate and I'm just going to name this shed wall and hit OK. And so now I have a duplicate. It's exactly the same as the generic wall, but now when I go and edit it, I'm not going to be changing what the shed wall is. So right now we have this setup. We have core boundary, and then we have structure 1 in the middle. And it's generic. There's no real material, but we can choose a material and we can choose how thick that material is. So we're actually going to make this a multi-leveled wall. First, we're going to insert some layers. We're going to have 4 total, so I'm going to insert, so that I have 4 layers. The first one, I'm going to change this to Finish 1, and for my material, I'm going to choose Siding Clapboard, so I'm going to find that in this list. Siding Clapboard, hit OK, and the thickness is going to be 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put 0.5, or I could put 1 divided by 2. Either way, it's going to be 1/2 inch. And this whole layer right here, I'm going to make it go up. So that's going to be above my core boundary. So the first layer is going to be finish 1, siding clapboard. That's going to be the thing that's on the outside of the shed wall. And then our core boundary will be the next layer. And then the next one, we're going to leave it structure 1. And then the material, we're going to do wood sheathing. So I'm going to click right here on this little button. And I'm going to come down here and choose wood and sheathing. And I'm going to use plywood for my sheathing. Okay. And for the thickness of this, we're going to do 3/4 of an inch. So this time I'll just do 3 divided by 4. Or you could put 0.75, and it's the same. Okay. The next layer is going to also be structure 1, and we're going to go by category again. And this time we're going to do wood, and we're going to do a stud layer. Hit OK. And this thickness is going to be 3.5 inches. So my inches here, I'm going to do 3.5 for 3.5. And then my last structure boundary, I'm going to push this down 1 so that the core boundary is above it. And this is going to be my finish on the inside. So basically, if I was standing right here, I'd have a layer here, and this is going to be what I'm going to look at when I'm inside the house or inside the shed. And then I'm going to have a core boundary. I'm going to have some sheathing and a stud layer here so that my stud layer is something that I can nail things into the wall with, and then I've got wood sheathing. Then I've got my final core boundary, and then on the very outside I'm going to have clapboard that's going to be on the outside of the shed. So this is going to be finish 2, and I'm going to go to my category, and this is going to be gypsum wallboard. So I'll find that in my list here, gypsum wallboard right there. Hit OK. And my thickness for this is going to be 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to highlight this 8 and do 3 divided by 4. And that'll be 3/4 of an inch. And so now we've successfully edited our wall. The basic generic wall, but we've actually made it the shed wall. This is going to be our shed wall, so I'm going to hit OK and apply and OK. So now our wall is going to have multi-layers to it. It's multiple layered. Let's look at what it looks like here. So now it's got this siding look to it. And on the inside, it's got a different coloring. It's a little lighter. That's our gypsum. And then this wall on the outside is clapboard. And you can see the texture of it is wood. So that's what all the outsides of our walls are going to be. So I've done that wall. So now let's do the rest of the walls. So I'm going to click this outer wall and hold Control and select the remaining walls. And I'm going to choose for my basic wall list, I'm going to go down to the bottom here and see how I have basic wall, shed wall. This is the one that we just created, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now all of our walls should turn into those shed walls. See? All the way around. Okay, let me show you what sometimes will happen. I'm going to go to my floor plan view, and now all my walls are changed. And if I click one of my walls, I want to show you what happens when we select these 2 double arrows. It says change walls orientation. If I click this, the arrows are now on the inside. That means that all of my layers have flip-flopped and now they're going the other direction. If I go back into my 3D view, I'm going to go ahead and save my project. You should see saving your project every few minutes. Look at this wall in here, see? The interior wall here is now my clapboard on the outside, and the wall on this side does not look right, it's gray. And so if that ever happens to you, then you need to flip the way that the wall looks. I'm going to go to my floor plan again, click this wall, click this little arrow here, and flip it around so it's going the other direction. Okay, now let's do the floor. I'm going to go to my 3D view. I'm going to click the floor here, and it's generic floor that's 12 inches. And instead of just having it be a generic floor, we're not going to modify the floor. We're just going to choose one of the basic floors, and we're going to choose wood joist 10-inch wood finish. Click that, and now we've got our wood floor for our shed. Okay, the last step is going to be creating the roof. And so we're going to create a roof by choosing roof here. And it says, you have created the roof on the lowest level. Would you like to move it to roof? Yes, we would. We don't want it to be on floor. We want it to be on the roof. So I'm going to hit yes. Okay, there's a couple things to note here. First of all, this little checkbox says define slope. Whatever faces we click on when define slope is checked, the roof is actually going to slope up from those walls. So if I want the roof to only slope up on the sides, or only on the long walls and not on the shorter walls, then I'm going to have define slope on only when I'm clicking on these walls. Also, I want to have an overhang of a foot. So I'm going to choose 1 foot overhang. And I'm going to click this wall right here and click this wall right here. And now I'm going to keep the 1 foot overhang, but I'm not going to define slope anymore. And I'm going to click this wall and this wall. And now I'm only going to slope on these edges and not on these ones. So I'm going to have a triangular or gabled roof for my shed. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't see my finish button on here. So if you don't see your checkbox, I'm going to cycle through my views by clicking on this button until I find it again. There it is. I got my green checkbox. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to go to my 3D view here, and I'm going to hit my little home button, and I've got my roof. Our roof is a generic roof right now. I'm going to select it. Generic basic roof, 12-inch. And we could go to edit type and change the different layers of what our roof are, but instead I'm just going to choose one of the roofs, which is wood rafter 8-inch asphalt single. It's the last one on the list here. Well, besides slope gate glazing. So this is the roof that we're going to choose as our type of roof here. We need to connect our walls to the roof because there's obviously a big gap here. And so I'm going to click on one of my walls, and I'm going to go to attach top base. It's under modify wall. It should automatically come up when you click on your wall, but if you don't see it, then you can cycle through your views by going to your panel buttons. So I'm going to go to attach top base, and I'm going to look at this from the right side so I ensure that I click on the roof. So now the wall has been attached to the roof, but only that wall has. So we need to attach the other walls. So I'm going to click on this next wall and do attach wall, or attach top to base. I'm going to go to the left side and click on my roof. So now my left wall is there. And I'm going to click on this back wall and do the same thing, attach top to base to the roof. I'm going to go to my left view so I can see my roof. And the last wall here. So now our shed has a roof, but the roof's a little bit higher than we want it to be. So I'm going to click on the roof, and it started out 2 feet higher, just like our interior wall did. So I'm going to lower the roof by coming over here to the properties of the roof, and I'm going to change it to 2 feet negative. Hit apply, and now the roof has dropped down to where we want it to be. So now we've completed our shed assembly, and now we can add a few frills.